Good morning, peoples. So we carry on with the landscape this morning. The first step I'm going to proceed with is to lighten all the lines that I drew yesterday. And I'm doing this, why? So that they don't interfere when I add the shading and with the finished artwork in the end, especially these very, very dark lines I made here. Because if you have a dark line where there should be a soft edge after shading, your artwork won't look realistic. Some of these lines are really too dark. Let's just see if we can lighten at least most of it. Alright, so after I've done this, I'm going to start to lay down the midtones and start building the general basic shadow areas. That's what I'm going to do first, and that I'm going to do if you have a bigger range of pencils apart from the normal HB and B ones. You can start this with a B pencil. That should be not too dark. Okay, let me just try and get the edges of the clouds in, sort of, more or less. Okay, I think that's good enough. Alright, so hold your pencil flat, right? Flat, so that you don't have streaks like I created there now. Alright, so this was the first stage of the shading. You would have seen that I started to try and include some texture here and the different different values, and even here at the front where it's very light, this would be the entry of your eye into the picture, right? And the sky with the clouds, it's just the general midtones that I've laid down now. Alrighty, so we'll get to the details in a bit. Alright, so now I'm going to start with the sky and the clouds. And remember that we're trying to create the illusion of distance and depth in our pictures. Alright, so let me start by, now I'm using a 4B, 6B and 8B pencils. I think the 6Bs and 8Bs will only come into play when I start to work on the mountains and the foreground. For now, I just want to darken the top part of the light of the sky. You will always notice that when you draw the sky or shade the sky, because of the limitations of our eyes, the closer the sky comes to the ground or clouds or whatever, the lighter it seems. And the higher up, the darker it seems. I do not know why that is like that, but that is like that. Even in cartoons and illustrations, the top of the sky is darker. Not a lot, sometimes only slightly, but a little bit darker than the rest. You will also see that I am making use of a kitchen towel to help me with the blending, especially in the big areas like the sky and the clouds. I'm going to use either an earbud or a Stampy or Tortillion for the finer details here, the smaller areas. Right, so now that's done. So now I notice that in general the clouds are lighter at the top and darker at the bottom, especially this part here where you can see underneath the clouds and it's far away into the distance. So what I'm going to do now is just to lighten the tops here, which means that I'm erasing parts of the shading that I did for the sky, as well as parts of the shading that the general mid-tone shading that I did for the clouds here. Okay, now even here where there's more shadows in the clouds, I'm going to erase just some of it because there is some white parts here as well. Alrighty. Okay. Now I can work. Let me use this bit. See, I'm using a part of the tissue that already has some graphite on it to work into the top of the clouds, because what I want to do here is I want to create contrast between the edges of the clouds and the darker shading of the sky above it. See, like that. But I don't want it to be too contrasted. That's why I don't use a pencil. That's why I use the graphite that's already on the tissue here. And I'm using that graphite on the tissue to darken the sky above the clouds just a tiny little bit. I don't know if you can see the difference. I can see it's not a huge difference, but it's a visible difference. Okay, from here on the process is going to be slower, so I'm not going to finish the entire thing in one video. Okay, I'm going to fast forward here. What I'm going to work on now is just the rest of the shadows and highlights, the darker and lighter values in the clouds. All right.